Him right now.
If you follow the news, you know there are a number of topics to talk to U.S. Senator Rand Paul about. Senator Paul, do we have you? Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Let's start with the situation in Minneapolis, another shooting involving an ICE agent overnight. President Trump now threatening to send in troops to, remedy the situation there. What are your thoughts on that and everything that's unfolding?
You know, I think it's a tragedy, obviously, anytime someone dies. I think police at local level, federal level, they have a tough job. I would rather see policing done more at the local level because I think our local police are better trained to understand First Amendment protests, how to police things, keep people safe without causing undue harm. That being said, the reason the national police are there, the ICE are there, is that the local people have been ignoring the national law. You know, we have a law that says that if you're in prison for assaulting someone and you're also not a citizen, when you're done serving your sentence, the authorities are notified and you're deported from the country. These left-wing cities have been resisting that, so they don't notify the national police and they don't cooperate. So the national police are there because the local left-wing mayor will not obey the national law. So really, it's a complicated situation, but I think that if the local authorities would cooperate better, I think you'd see less federal police involvement.
Senator, staying in Minnesota, this fraud investigation has been going on with child care and other public services. And now there is an allegation that hundreds of millions of dollars are being sent through airports to Somalia. What can be done to restore trust that federal money is not, being used in fraud?
Well, there are reports of $700 million going through, leaving in suitcases out of Minneapolis. Some of the suitcases have as much as $1 million in them at a time. And this is more than goes through big airports. So 700 million out of Minneapolis, I think it's 1% of that goes out of Dallas, Fort Worth, and out of some of the New York airports. So there's something extraordinarily going on in Minneapolis. It's amazing to me that this has been discovered finally, not by the executive branch, not by auditing it, but by some young influencer going in and filming and asking questions. But it needs to come to an end. We don't have enough money to barely take care of the people who legitimately need help, but we certainly don't need to be letting fraudsters rip us off.
Senator, you sided with Democrats in trying to pass the War Powers Act. It would have required congressional approval for future military action in Venezuela. So that failed yesterday in the Senate. My question for you is, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you go from here?
I have no love lost for Maduro. My wife and I wrote a book, The Case Against Socialism. Most of the first part of the book talks about Venezuelan socialism, talks about Maduro and Chavez, how awful it is for their people. We tell the story of a 16-year-old girl who has a gang, and her turf is basically 4 dumpsters to scavenge for food. So socialism is a horrible economic system, and it was a really bad form of it in Venezuela. Glad he's gone. That being said, the Constitution is very clear about who gets to make these decisions. It says that the people do, through their representatives, that only Congress can declare war. So this is an important debate, and it's not just me going after President Trump. This is a debate that's been going on my entire lifetime. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than Donald Trump. And I think it was important that we had this debate, because to say it's not a war, they're basically saying, oh, it's just a drug bust, nothing to see here. But they bombed the Capitol, they removed a president, and we're blockading an entire country. That is a war if I've ever seen one. And any kind of semantics to say this is a drug bust is kind of, I think will not hold water.
Kind of sticking with international affairs, what's your take on what our involvement should be in Iran? As we know, the regime has been killing protesters there. Traditionally, I know you're against foreign intervention, so what do you think we should do?
Well, I think we should express our sympathy and solidarity with the people seeking freedom and hope that they can get there. I've lived my whole life as sort of through the Cold War, the end of the Cold War, and always wished that the people of the Soviet Union would rise up. How did they tolerate Stalin? How did they tolerate 37 million people dying when the people together are a unit so big that no dictator can resist them? Then when the Cold War came and the Iron Curtain fell, everybody was jubilant, and really it happened with not much war. I hope that the people will rise up to such an extent in Iran that there doesn't have to be a prolonged civil war or killing. I don't think our bombs help, though. I think if we begin dropping American bombs, I think there's a danger that it deters the people from their justifiable anger towards the mullahs, and all of a sudden they see foreign bombs dropping and they rally around the flag and say, who is this foreign country? So I think that it's better that we encourage them and do some things quietly, but I don't necessarily think that bombing. If we were to bomb, though, it needs to be a vote in Congress. It's just like Venezuela. You have to vote. The president doesn't have the power to begin offensive wars. And people will say, well, he seems to because he keeps doing it and every other president does it. That is true. Republican and Democrat president alike have used this war power, but I believe it's been an abuse, and that's why I continue to debate it.
Yesterday, talking with Joe Rogan, you discussed a desire to prosecute Anthony Fauci. Talk about why you feel like that's justified.
You know, I think he lied to Congress. He came to Congress and said, oh, nothing to see here. We're not funding this dangerous research in China. Turns out they were funding it, and turns out it was extremely dangerous. And when you look at his private emails, which have been released by Freedom of Information Act, you find that in private he was acknowledging, yeah, this is scary. They are doing gain-of-function research there. And the research he describes was basically the research that he was funding. So yes, he knew this all along, and he was trying to escape culpability, because if it came from a lab that he was funding, people might ask the reasonable question, why were you funding dangerous research where there weren't enough safety precautions? And he would not be able to escape culpability for this, pandemic that killed 18 million people. So I think that we also have evidence now in my investigation that he was destroying emails. Emails between him and Francis Collins are saying, read this and destroy it. Well, that's against the law. The executive branch is mandated by law to maintain their emails, and those become public so the public can get an idea of what these people are doing. And so I think he's broken the law on several occasions. And yes, I think that he should be indicted.
Kentucky U.S. Senator Rand Paul, thank you for being on the show today. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.